But first, to some breaking news. President Trump is calling on the FBI and the Justice Department to look into the relationships between Jeffrey Epstein and a number of prominent Democrats. The names on that list include Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, and many others. The president made that announcement in a social media post. He went on to accuse Democrats of trying to use the Epstein investigation as a way to deflect criticism on the government shutdown. He also says this is simply a Russia scam. Let's bring in CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes. Nancy, thank you for your time today. What does the president say is the reason for this investigation?
Well, Mugo, setting aside the fact that presidents typically try not to call on the FBI to investigate anyone because they're wary of the appearance of political interference, in this case, President Trump says that he is calling on the FBI to investigate these individuals, several Democrats whose names have come up in connection to Jeffrey Epstein and one financial institution, because he says Democrats are using the Epstein hoax to try and deflect from the disastrous shutdown. So now he wants his Attorney General, the Department of Justice, to investigate Jeffrey Epstein's involvement with Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, and JPMorgan Chase. He says this is all another Russia scam, with arrows actually pointing not to him, but to the Democrats. President Trump apparently feeling the heat because his name has come up in connection to Jeffrey Epstein quite a bit in the recent emails that were released by the House Oversight Committee. And Mugo, we now have a reaction from JPMorgan Chase to the president's call for them to be investigated. Here is what a spokesperson is saying. The government had damning information about Epstein's crimes and failed to share it with us or other banks. We regret any association we had with the man, but did not help him commit his heinous acts. We ended our relationship with him years before his arrest on sex trafficking charges.
All right. Nancy Cordes at the White House for us today. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, this is also a story on Capitol Hill, where Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene joined CBS Mornings earlier. She criticized her Republican colleagues for failing to release the full Epstein files, but she is still defending the president. Here's what she had to say.
It's for the victims. These women have been waiting, some of them for decades. I talked to several victims that were raped by Jeffrey Epstein back in the 90s. And so this is information that has needed to come out for a very long time, and the American people have demanded it. And so the American people deserve to see transparency from their government. Rich, powerful people should not be protected. That is completely wrong. And it's a message to victims everywhere, victims of rape, human trafficking, and children who are trapped in terrible situations, that the government will not protect the predators, that we will work hard to protect the victims. I believe the women, and the women have said over and over again that Donald Trump did nothing wrong. Even Virginia Giuffre said it under oath, and she wrote it in her book. And so if we listen to the women, they say Donald Trump has done nothing wrong.
All right, let's bring in CBS News Congressional correspondent Nicole Killion, who is on Capitol Hill for us today. Nicole, good to see you again. Can you walk us through the next steps on how this vote will take place, and even the process behind it?
Yeah, that's right. Well, keep in mind, this is something different than a traditional bill in the sense that this vote will be taking place because of a discharge petition, which is basically an effort to kind of go around the regular process to force a vote on the calling on the Justice Department to fully release the Epstein files. We saw Arizona Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva become that final signature on that petition, which kind of triggers a vote. And while typically these things have to sit for a few days before they can be called up, Speaker Mike Johnson has indicated that he intends to move forward with a vote as soon as next week. So really kind of fast tracking the process. And at this point, he has indicated, if the petition has 218 signatures. There's really what's kind of the point in waiting here, and he does have that authority to call this up at any time. So once it is called up, it's really just a matter of the process and how leadership decides to do this, or whether they kind of hold a standard vote, in which case it will have to kind of go through a rules process, and you'll just need a simple majority of 218 members, or whether or not they raise that vote threshold by going through a different process, suspension under the rules. And I don't mean to get into the weeds here, but it's just basically a matter of, are they going to require the bare minimum votes or a higher threshold level of votes to try to push this through? Because there is a sense that we could see more Republicans join on to this measure besides those who have already signed on to this discharge petition.
Yeah, and this is in line with my next question, because how do all these latest developments, what do they say about how this is being handled on lawmakers on both sides of the aisle?
Yeah, well, again, I think in terms of this discharge petition, what it shows is there is bipartisan concern over this issue, and that many lawmakers, both Democrats and Republicans, want some transparency here in terms of calling for the full release of the Epstein files. That being said, there is an investigation underway here on Capitol Hill by the House Oversight Committee, which has, secured a number of documents from the Epstein estate. Some of those documents were published this week, including those emails that named Donald Trump, even though, there was nothing necessarily incriminating, but just seemingly to suggest that he may have known more about Epstein's criminal behavior. We know the White House has kind of pushed back against some of those emails, saying that they were cherry-picked. But that being said, this is something that this Congress has been taking very seriously and deliberately. So these processes are kind of playing out on two tracks between the vote and this ongoing oversight investigation, all with the end goal of trying to get the full release of those files.
We'll see if we ever get to that point. Nicole Killian, thank you so much for joining us today.